friends, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome to the channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you are returning. So I thought for today's video it would be a fun thing to do since Kirby's new book just came out, and that's going to be the first project we work on in April on stream, that rather than do a completed pages video for this month, that I would take some time to go through all of my Kirby books and pick out some of my favorite pages in his other books that I've completed and share those with you guys. Some of these have videos or live streams on the channel. Some of them are things that I have done on my own. But yeah, so I thought it would be something cool to do for this week. So I have, which is strange considering I have many Kirby books on my shelf, duplicates of some of them, and most of my favorite pages are actually in these 6 books right here. Now, this isn't the only pages I've completed, but these are the ones that I'm most proud of. So I'm gonna move all of these off to the side here, and we will start with Color Morphia. I think I have 3 in Color Morphia. Let me just make sure we can fit all of this on the screen here, because double page spreads. This, I believe, was one of the first double page spreads that I did in a Kirby book. I had actually started this page in another book and didn't like how it turned out, so I recolored it in this book, in Color Morphia, which is one of the compilation books. And I can't remember if I used my pastel pencils or my pan pastels for this sky right here, but I remember that was one of the things that I struggled with. I think I had originally tried it with colored pencil, and I didn't like the way it turned out. This was really early on in my journey, and I was still kind of, figuring out my style and how to use certain supplies. So shifted gears, and then I'm fairly certain most of the base color on the monster here was done with markers and then colored pencil over the top, but I can't tell you what brand of colored pencil I ended up using. And I was pretty pleased with the way this turned out. If I could go back and make some changes, I probably would have darkened some of these areas up with some different shadows and things like that, but I thought it turned out pretty cool. So, and then we have this double page image. Now, this one was a forever whip, and there are definitely a few older live streams on this one. I actually think this was the first thing I worked on my YouTube channel, one of the first things. And then we pulled it out recently, I believe, for 3 whips, 3 hours, and worked on it a little bit more. And this was all based with the Arteza Twi markers, which I have since gifted to my niece. But yeah, all of this base color, oh, my book's falling apart, all of this base color was with the Twi markers, and then I used the polychromos over the top to do my detail work. And I like this one just because it was something different, using new supplies. This was one of the first things I did with a marker base, and I just like the contrast between all of the oranges and the yellows, and then we've got the pinks and the purples and the lanterns, which I would do the lanterns over again if I could. I have since evolved in my lantern coloring and just my distribution of lighting, but still one of my favorite pages from Kirby that I've completed, and unfortunately he is not going to completely fit in the frame here. But and then in the last one in this book, moving around. This one I live streamed over on Twitch before I made the decision to swap over and do art over on YouTube. And this one was heavily inspired by if I butcher her name, I'm going to apologize. Sari Kani. And is based on the page that she did that was included at the front of the book. So I took quite a bit of inspiration from her page here. I'm not exactly sure what medium she used on hers, but mine was based entirely in pan pastel. I went over the whole thing in probably the lime green, and then I used a couple of the blue and turquoise colors in the set, and then hit it with fixative and let it sit, and then did all of the detail work and blacking out these certain areas with the polychromos pencils. And this is probably my favorite Kirby page that I have done, but I was really pleased with the way it came out. And again, it was fun. This was the first or second page that I ever used the pan pastels on, and I really should bring those out and use them more often. It's just kind of tough in this space because they're a little messy, and I would have to use fixative in between sessions, but they deserve to be used, so maybe at some point we'll bring them back. So that was my pages in this copy of Color Morphia. Next, I have Worlds Within Worlds, and there's only one completed page in this copy of Worlds Within Worlds. I have some whips that I have since come across in my other copy, but yeah, we've just got the one, another double page spread, and again, this was based with markers. I'm pretty sure it was the Twi markers again on the majority of the water, the monster, and all of these buildings. And of course now I see I missed some spots in here that I'll have to go back in and fix, and probably polychromos. I think I was heavily favoring the polychromos at this point in my coloring journey, but I could definitely go in and do some more dynamic shading and coloring on this. It's interesting to look back at these because these are very, like I said, early in my coloring journey, so to kind of look at them and say, oh, well, this is what I would do with them now, and to see kind of how far I've come is pretty cool. So that's my one page in this copy of Worlds Within Worlds. And next we have Mythamorphia, and this is the US edition, and this is actually the first one in this book is actually relatively recent. I did this past fall, for October, and I used a combination of the King Art gel crayons, some of the Faber-Castell gelatos over everything but the trees. I blacked the trees out with an acrylic paint pen, which if I had it to do over again, I would have just used watered down acrylic paint and a brush because this took forever. And I think I used the paint pen on the bats too, but then I ran into some issues over here where they just kind of blended in with the trees, so I ended up making some of them brown. And then I went over the wolf and in some spots on the sky and on the ground with Prismacolors. But I really like the effect the gel crayons had on the sky. I thought it turned out pretty cool, and then I brought in some more of the yellow, the moonlighting, here on the middle of the page. So yeah, so this was a recent one. And then this one was, I want to say December of 2023, so from about a year ago. And this was all done with Crayola crayons on the sky here. And there is a video, I think there's a video of this on the channel. So yeah, Crayola crayons as the base, and then I used the Crayola colored pencils to do a bunch of the detail work here. And I had some trouble figuring out how I was going to do all of these like chunky pieces here. I think they were supposed to be like almost like pieces of ash that you would see like flying off of a fire, but I felt like, okay, well, they could be snow, so that was kind of the route that I went with them. And I ended up using a paint pen over top of some of them and didn't really like the way that it looked. So I kind of hit a point where I just had to roll with it. And so some of them are, the lines are blacked out and some of them aren't, but I really liked working with the Crayolas on this one, so I definitely need to pull them out again as well and work with them again. But aside from the background, I like the way the Yeti came out. So that is Mythamorphia. And next we have Mythic World, and there's a couple pages in this. Some of these are recents. So we have this double page spread of the Kappa. Now this was a forever whip. I started this a few years ago, probably shortly after the book came out, and then we pulled it out and did it for a whip stream recently, and I was a couple whip streams actually, and I was able to finish this one. It is all based with a water, well, the monster, let me take that back. So the monster, the shell, and up into the tree were all based with either Arteza water-based H2O marker, or H2O Everblend water-based markers, or Ohuhu. And then I used my Derwent Chroma Flows for the detail work, and then once everything was done, I grabbed a couple of my Faber-Castell gelatos and went over all of the water, because I wanted a blue tinge to the monster under the water and to the fish, but I didn't want it to completely overpower the color of him. And so I took the brush and went over the whole thing and then used some of the chromaflows down here at the bottom to kind of darken it up where it would be murky. And then we used some Inktense up here on the clouds and on the sky, and a little bit of white gouache. And then the majority of the top of the shell, the grass, the birds and whatnot, those were all just done with the colored pencils. And I was really happy with the way this one came out as well. Aside from the sun, I don't really care for how this just looks like I don't know. I wish I would have done a better job on blending my edges out a little bit more, but such is life. And then the last one we have in this book we did for March, or I'm sorry, February. This was our February project that we worked on throughout the majority of the streams last month. And I based all of this with Derwent Inktense and then used the chromaflows over the top of it and to do my detail work. And I love the way this one came out. I need to go back in and do some like touch-ups on it, because of course now I sit here looking at it after it's had some time to marinate and I see some things that I want to fix. But it is largely done. Just those minor little things that when you walk away from a project and you come back and you're like, oh, let's fix that. But it was a very dynamic color palette on this one, so it was neat to just kind of blend these contrasting colors, you know, with the turquoise and then all of the orange and red and flame. So we've got that one, and that is the last page in this copy of Mythic World. Next we have one in Color Universe. This is also relatively recent. This was done as part of a community color with the Mindful Colorist, and his community picked the page that they wanted to see him do, and then I joined in and did my own version of it. So mine was all done, save for the background over here, was done with Inktense, no colored pencil. I based everything with the Inktense and then used different layering techniques to get darker values to do my shading and whatnot. And then I decided to change all of this background right here to black, and I did this with some watered down acrylic paint, and then just went in and added the bubbles back in with a white. I think I started out with a white gel pen, and then I tried it with an acrylic marker and liked that a little bit better. But yeah, it was nice to break the Inktense back out and play with those. So yeah, I like the way this one turned out, and it was cool to do a buddy color community color with another community, so that was also fun. And last but not least, we have my other copy of Mythic World. Ouch. And I have a couple pages in this one. So I think this was like the first page. No, this was not the first page that I completed in this book. Gosh, I'm trying to remember if I did this while I was deployed or if it was shortly after I came back. I think it was shortly after I came back, and I did this one on my own before I decided whether or not I was going to try and come back to YouTube. It was kind of in that post-deployment haze where I was trying to sort my life out. But this was done entirely with the Caran d'Ache luminance, including the background. And I would definitely do something different with the background. I really struggle with wide open spaces with the colored pencils to get them to look nice. And I think I had used either an alcohol marker blender to try and smooth some of that out, or possibly some Gamsol, and I just couldn't quite get it to look the way I wanted. But this was based off of a reference image that I found on Pinterest in terms of how I picked my color scheme. And this I will kind of credit as one of the first pages that kind of propelled me towards my my newer kind of vibe of limited color palettes, and really just kind of sticking to more of a theme than trying to incorporate too many colors and getting overwhelmed. So this was definitely fun to work on, and it was cool because I was really just kind of laying down little pieces of color and then grabbing another pencil and seeing how things could fit like around it, just to, you know, get the vibe that I wanted. But since I was working with a limited color palette, it was actually easier to make it feel more cohesive. So and then we have Thor, and there's definitely a couple live streams on. This was a tutorial stream, and I was kind of teaching how I do underpainting with water-based markers and then pencil over the top. And so the majority of Thor was done with Tombows and polychromos, and then I used a couple Ohuhu markers for the base colors on the rocks and some polychromos for the detail work here. And then for the sky, I ended up using my Inktense pencils and bringing some of that color down into the rocks down here. But I thought he came out pretty cool. This was fun to try and blend the rocks into the lower part of his legs here. But yeah, so there are a couple videos on this one on the channel. And then we have the Oni, and this one, I was actually on vacation when I worked on this one, and I used the Karen, I'm pretty sure it was the brush markers as the base layer on the majority of the Oni, the tan parts, and I think on his hair. And then the detail work was done with the luminance pencils and some paint marker for some of the highlights. And I like the way it came out, but I definitely wouldn't use the Karen markers for a large spread like this again, even on this single page. It was really difficult to get them to smooth out, even with some of the tricks and whatnot that I have for using the colored pencils over top of them to kind of cover up some of that streakiness you get from water-based markers. So they were a little tricky to work with in that respect, and I really had to layer on the colored pencil on this one to get it to a result that I was satisfied with, but yeah, thought he came out pretty cool in the end. So, and I think that's, yeah, that's, so that is my last page. I'm not gonna pull all the other books over here, but yeah, I thought it would be cool, like I said, if we wrapped up the month with some of my current Kirby favorites as a segue into starting our new project next week. So hopefully you enjoyed this this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks so much.